You don't find a K-9 guarding an ambulance every day. Staff Sergeant Ryan Walker mutters under his breath as rain lashes the cracked asphalt of the Charleston docks, droplets bouncing off his broad shoulders and pooling in the creases of his dark green jacket. The sky hangs heavy, gray clouds pressing down like a weight you can feel in your chest, and the wind carries the sharp tang of salt water mixed with diesel exhaust from the distant port. His boots crunch over puddled concrete, echoing softly against the quiet hum of the early morning. Ahead, a German shepherd stands rigid, muscles coiled, eyes amber and luminous even through the drizzle, its black and tan fur slick with rain. Shadow doesn't flinch at the approaching footsteps, only tilts his head slightly, nostrils flaring as he scents the air, growl low and restrained in his throat. The ambulance is parked crookedly under a flickering streetlight, doors locked, windows fogged from the humid morning air, and Ryan can see nothing of what lies inside. His heart picks up a steady rhythm, awareness sharpening with every cautious step, memory of missions past and instincts honed over years of service guiding him. The air is thick, wet, and metallic, the faint smell of antiseptic and rubber seeping through the drizzle, mixing with the natural tang of wet earth. Ryan kneels slightly, reaching for the handle, muscles tense but controlled, eyes never leaving Shadow's steady gaze. The dog shifts, steps closer to the ambulance with an almost imperceptible hesitation, then plants himself firmly, hackles raised just enough to warn without threat. A faint whimper escapes the locked vehicle, tiny and urgent, piercing the ambient noise of rainfall and distant foghorns, and Ryan feels a pang of dread tighten his chest. Shadow's ears swivel, signaling Ryan to pause, to take in the moment, to trust the instincts that have kept both of them alive in far worse conditions. The wind lifts briefly, tugging at Ryan's jacket, carrying with it a faint smell of something familiar. Vanilla and blood oranges from the fruit stand across the street, grounding him even as the rain soaks him through. He exhales slowly, murmuring a quiet prayer under his breath, not to God for luck, but for clarity, for guidance, for the strength to act right. The street is empty except for the dull hum of a distant engine, the soft patter of raindrops against metal, the low growl of Shadow as he edges closer to the ambulance, nose twitching, eyes narrowing, tail held low but rigid. Ryan senses the gravity of the moment, the fragile balance between hesitation and action, and reaches for the small flashlight clipped to his belt. He flicks it on, the beam cutting through fog and rain, illuminating the locked doors and the sheen of water on the pavement. Shadow steps back slightly, as if granting permission, a silent acknowledgement of the trust placed between human and canine. Ryan's fingers meet the cold metal handle, slick with rain, and he feels the pulse of anticipation, the heartbeat of something waiting just beyond the doors. Every muscle in his body is coiled with focus, yet there is a stillness in the storm, a pause that feels almost sacred. He whispers to Shadow, "Stay close, buddy," and the dog leans in slightly, growl subsiding into a low, expectant hum. The rain continues, soft but insistent, drumming a rhythm against the roof of the ambulance and on Ryan's jacket, each drop a reminder of the urgency, the vulnerability, the fragile hope that lies within the locked doors. The morning is quiet, apart from the storm, and for a brief moment, the world seems suspended in anticipation, waiting for the miracle that only a steadfast Marine and a loyal K-9 can uncover. Ryan keeps his palm wrapped around the cold handle for one breath longer than he should, because some doors do not feel like doors when you touch them. Some feel like a choice. Rain runs down his wrist and slips beneath his sleeve, icy against his skin, but he does not pull back. Shadow stands less than 3 feet away, body angled toward the rear of the ambulance. Amber eyes fixed on the fogged glass, as if he can see through metal, through darkness, through every unanswered second. Ryan has worked with military dogs before. He knows the difference between fear and focus. Shadow is not afraid. Shadow is guarding something. "Easy," Ryan says, voice low, careful, steady enough to calm a child, or a wounded animal, or maybe himself. The dog's ears twitch at the sound, but he does not move. Beyond them, the dock road lies almost empty, washed silver by rain and the thin yellow pulse of the streetlight. A chain-link fence rattles in the wind. Somewhere out on the water, A horn calls once, long and lonely, then fades into the gray. Ryan glances toward the front windshield. No driver. No movement. No flashing lights. The ambulance looks abandoned in the worst possible way. Too clean to be forgotten. Too still to be harmless. He steps to the side window and wipes the glass with his sleeve. The fog smears, revealing only blurred shapes inside. The shadow of shelves, straps, folded blankets. A hanging oxygen mask swaying gently from the motion of the wind against the vehicle. Then he hears it again. Not a cry this time. A small tap. Soft. Weak. Coming from the rear compartment. Ryan's breath catches. Shadow lets out a low whine, barely more than air, and presses his wet nose to the lower seam of the door. The sound changes something in Ryan. It reaches past training, past caution, past the official procedures written for ordinary mornings. He straightens and pulls his phone from his pocket, shielding it from the rain with one hand. One bar flickers, then disappears. He turns, searching for a better signal, raising the phone toward the gray sky, but the screen shows nothing useful. The storm has swallowed the signal, the way storms do in low places near the water. Of course, he whispers, not angry, just tired of the world making the smallest mercy harder than it has to be. He tries the emergency line anyway. The call spins. Drops. Silence. Ryan looks back at Shadow. The dog has not taken his eyes off the door. There is an old service collar around his neck, soaked and darkened by the rain, the metal tag dull beneath a smear of mud. Ryan crouches just enough to read it without reaching too fast. Shadow. Medical K9. Harbor Response Unit. The words settle heavy in Ryan's mind. This is not a stray. This dog belongs to a purpose. Maybe someone trained him to stay. Maybe someone trusted him with a life. Ryan's jaw tightens, and for the first time he notices faint tire marks cutting across the puddles, curved and uneven, as if the ambulance had come to a sudden stop. No shattered glass. No flames. No signs of panic. Just a vehicle locked under a light, a trained dog soaked to the bone, and a sound inside that is growing weaker. He moves to the front cab and tries the driver's door. Locked. Passenger door. Locked. He shines the flashlight through the windshield. A paper coffee cup lies tipped in the holder. A clipboard has slid to the floor. The radio unit is dark, but a small green light blinks near the dash, slow and stubborn, like a pulse refusing to quit. Ryan returns to the back. Shadow steps closer, shoulder brushing Ryan's knee, and the contact is brief but unmistakable. Permission. Plea. Command. All three at once. All right, Ryan says, softer now. I hear you. He scans the ground and finds a tire iron near the curb, half hidden beneath rainwater and grit. He picks it up, feeling the weight of it, and pauses. He does not want to break anything. He does not want to make the wrong move. But inside the ambulance, something shifts, followed by a breathy little sound that makes the entire morning shrink down to one locked door. Ryan places one hand flat against the metal. It is colder than it should be. Hold on in there, he says. I am right here. Shadow lowers himself into a sit beside him, not relaxed, not resting, but bracing, as if the dog has decided that if hope is going to happen, it will happen from this exact spot. Ryan wedges the tire iron near the rear latch and applies pressure carefully, not forcing, listening to the metal complain beneath the rain. The first attempt slips. His knuckles hit the door, pain flashing sharp through his hand, but he only exhales and resets. Shadow whines once, then turns his head toward the road. Ryan follows his gaze. Far beyond the fence, headlights appear through the mist, moving slowly, then stopping. For a second, the dock road goes completely still. Ryan cannot make out who is there. He only sees the shape of a dark vehicle idling in the rain, its lights dim behind the fog. Shadow rises, silent now, body stiff as a drawn line. The little sound inside the ambulance fades again. Ryan feels the choice close around him. The unknown behind him. The child in front of him. The dog beside him. He grips the tire iron tighter, bends back to the latch, and says under his breath, "Then we do this now." Ryan leans closer to the rear doors, his boots squelching in the shallow puddles that have formed along the dock, and he can feel the rain soaking through the fabric of his jacket, clinging to his skin with a persistent chill. Shadow shifts slightly, pressing his shoulder against Ryan's leg, the amber eyes fixed intently on the small, muffled movement within. Each breath from the dog is steady, controlled, almost ritualistic, a quiet heartbeat of assurance amidst the uncertainty. The first click of the latch yields a soft resistance, metal complaining under the pressure, and Ryan leans all of his weight against it, muscles tense but deliberate, listening to the faintest sigh from inside. The second attempt moves the lock a fraction further, and Ryan pauses, hand resting lightly on the cool surface of the door, fingertips brushing the raised seam. Another faint sound, almost a whisper, escapes the interior, drawing Ryan's gaze sharply. He can hear it now, a soft, uneven exhalation, like the careful breathing of someone small and fragile, and his chest tightens with a mix of relief and apprehension. The rain pours harder, pattering against the roof of the ambulance, filling the pauses between each motion with a rhythm that matches the tension in his shoulders. Shadow tilts his head, ears flicking back, and lets out a single low whine, a nudge of encouragement, the dog's way of saying it is time. Ryan takes a slow breath, the cold air stinging his lungs, and shifts his grip, levering the latch just enough to create a tiny gap. A streak of dim morning light filters in through the windshield, catching on a small figure curled beneath a blanket, chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. The sight hits Ryan with a quiet intensity, focus sharpening to every detail. A wispy strand of hair against a pale forehead, a tiny hand clutching the edge of the blanket, eyes fluttering in the dim light. Shadow presses forward, nose twitching, growl fading into a gentle rumble, signaling that it is safe to proceed. Ryan whispers, "It is okay. You are not alone," letting the words float softly across the small gap, steadying his own pulse as much as hers. The child moves slightly, a small cough, and Ryan feels a flutter of urgency, remembering every training exercise, every life he has been sworn to protect, converging into this single decisive moment. He shifts the tire iron carefully, easing the door open just enough to reach in, fingers brushing the edge of the blanket, cold and wet from the damp air. The movement startles the small figure, but it is gentle, measured, full of care, and Ryan feels the warmth of the fragile presence within, heart pounding against his ribs as the rain continues its relentless percussion. Shadow leans closer, head low, tail held in a calm arc, grounding Ryan, affirming that each step is right. With a careful lift, Ryan eases the child toward him, feeling the slight tremble in her small body, the weight light but precious. Her hair, damp and tangled, brushes against his arm. Her breathing, shallow and uneven, steadies slightly against the motion of being cradled. The sound of the rain, the distant hum of the port, and the faint echo of a horn across the water compose a strange symphony around the tableau, giving gravity to each instant. Ryan's eyes scan the interior of the ambulance once more, checking straps, blankets, and supplies, but the priority is clear. Keep her safe, keep her calm, and bring the miracle to the light of day. Shadow rises, moving to flank Ryan, eyes never leaving the little girl, offering a silent guardianship, a partnership forged in trust and necessity. Ryan murmurs again, words barely above the steady rhythm of the rain, "We have you now. You are safe." The sound reaches her, or maybe it is the presence of two steady hearts at her side, human and canine, that reassures her enough to let a sigh escape, fragile but audible. He steps backward, keeping the door open, water pooling at his boots, hands cradling her securely, the faintest hint of morning sun breaking through the clouds above, glinting off the wet metal and illuminating Shadow's glossy coat. Every detail, every heartbeat, every breath is amplified, the stillness of a moment that feels suspended in time, a private world where rain, fear, and hope intertwine. Ryan glances at the approaching dock ramp, visualizing the path to warmth, to help, to safety, each step measured, deliberate, careful not to jostle the child, aware of the presence beside him. Shadow shifts again, a soft nudge, a tactile reassurance, and Ryan lets himself exhale, a quiet release of tension, knowing that the storm outside has not yet passed, but the most delicate life within his arms has been reached, cradled, and held. He steps forward, the weight of responsibility balanced with the fragile lift of hope, and the first soft rays of dawn touch the edge of the dock, silvering the rain, reflecting in the amber of Shadow's eyes. an unspoken promise that they are not alone, that some miracles are made of patience, trust, and the quiet steadfastness of those willing to stay in the storm until the smallest heartbeat is safe. The dark vehicle beyond the fence does not move, and that is what makes Ryan notice it more. Headlights glow through the mist like two pale eyes, dimmed by rain and distance, watching without coming closer. Ryan holds the little girl against his chest, one arm beneath her shoulders, the other supporting her knees, careful to keep the damp blanket wrapped around her small body. She is light in a way that frightens him, not because she is weak, but because children should never feel this fragile in the arms of a stranger. Shadow stays beside his left leg, close enough that Ryan can feel the dog's wet fur brush his uniform pants with every step. The German Shepherd does not bark. He only watches the road, quiet and certain, the way trained dogs watch when something does not belong. "Stay with me, sweetheart," Ryan murmurs, his voice steady, almost a whisper beneath the rain. The little girl's eyelids flutter, but she does not fully wake. A tiny bracelet circles her wrist, pink plastic beads spelling the name Emily in uneven letters, each bead slick with moisture. Ryan sees it, and something inside him softens with a sudden ache. Emily. A name turns a rescue into a promise. He looks back into the ambulance, scanning quickly, searching for anything that might explain why she was there, why Shadow had been left to guard her, why the doors were locked on a morning when every second mattered. The interior light flickers weakly above the stretcher. A small medical cooler sits strapped beneath the bench, white with a red cross on the side, its latch sealed, its surface beaded with condensation. Beside it lies a folded note sealed in a clear plastic sleeve, tucked under a roll of gauze as if placed there by hands that had no time to do anything else. Ryan shifts Emily carefully against his shoulder and reaches in just far enough to grab the sleeve. Shadow whines the moment Ryan touches it, then noses the cooler, urgent but controlled. "That too?" Ryan asks. Shadow taps the cooler once with his paw. Not hard, not frantic, certain. Ryan has seen that kind of certainty before in dogs trained to find what human eyes miss. He slides the cooler out with one hand, jaw tight from the effort, then sets it on the wet pavement beside his boot. The note crinkles under his fingers. Through the plastic, the writing is hurried but clear. "My daughter needs this. Please get her to Mercy Children's. Trust the dog." Ryan reads the words twice, and the rain seems to fall quieter around him. Mercy Children's Hospital is 4 miles inland, maybe 5 with the dock roads flooded. Too far to walk with a child this week. Too far to wait without a working phone signal. He glances toward the idling vehicle beyond the fence. Still there. Still watching. The unknown does not have a face yet, and Ryan refuses to give it power by imagining one. He focuses on what is in his hands. Emily. The cooler. The dog. The note. For truths in a storm full of questions. He kneels beside the cooler, keeping Emily pressed close, and checks the latch. Inside, nestled between frozen packs, is a small insulated case marked with a hospital label and a handwritten patient name, Emily Carter. Ryan does not open it further. He does not need to know the medicine by sight to understand its weight. Whatever waits inside that case belongs to her. Whatever happened before he arrived, someone had tried to send help with the only guardian they trusted. Shadow lowers his head and gently touches his nose to Emily's dangling hand. Her fingers move, just enough to brush his muzzle. The dog closes his eyes for half a second, as if receiving orders from a higher place. Ryan stands, cooler in one hand, Emily in the other arm, and turns toward the street where his truck is parked a short distance away near the warehouse gate. The rain slants harder now, stinging his face, blurring the yellow line of the road. The dark vehicle beyond the fence finally rolls forward a few feet, tires hissing over wet pavement, then stops again. Shadow steps between Ryan and the fence, shoulders squared, silent as a shadow drawn from the storm itself. "No," Ryan says quietly. "We are not waiting for them." He moves. Not running, because running could jostle Emily. Not slow, because time has teeth. He walks with the measured urgency of a man who has carried responsibility before and knows panic wastes strength. His truck sits beneath a leaning utility pole, an old Ford with a Marine Corps decal faded on the rear window and a blanket folded behind the seat. Ryan opens the passenger door, lays Emily gently across the seat, tucks the blanket around her. then places the cooler on the floorboard where it will not tip. Shadow jumps in without command, settling on the floor beside Emily, his body curved protectively near her legs. Ryan pauses for one breath at the open door, rain running down his face, and watches the dog rest his chin near the child's hand. Emily's fingers twitch again. This time, they find fur. It is the smallest thing. It is everything. Ryan shuts the door softly, crosses to the driver's side, and starts the engine. The dashboard lights glow warm against the gray morning. For the first time, his phone catches one thin bar. He dials while shifting into drive, speaking clearly when the line connects. This is Staff Sergeant Ryan Walker. I have a young female child, approximately 6 years old, medically fragile, en route to Mercy Children's Hospital from the Charleston docks. She has a labeled medical cooler. With her, German Shepherd Medical K9 is with us. Alert the emergency entrance now. A voice answers with questions, but Ryan is already steering onto the flooded road, headlights cutting through the rain. In the side mirror, the dark vehicle remains near the fence, shrinking behind them, swallowed by mist. Shadow lifts his head once, watching it fade, then turns back to Emily. Ryan presses the accelerator gently, not too hard, not too soft, and whispers into the storm, "Hold on, Emily Carter. We are bringing you home." The road away from the docks is half drowned in morning rain, and Ryan keeps both hands steady on the wheel as the old Ford moves through water that ripples silver beneath the headlights. Charleston is waking slowly beyond the port gates, but this part of the city still belongs to fog, freight yards, and the soft warning bells of railroad crossings blinking red in the distance. The voice from emergency dispatch crackles through Ryan's phone on speaker, thin and strained by poor signal, asking him to repeat the child's name, asking if she is breathing, asking how far he is from Mercy Children's Hospital. "Emily Carter," Ryan says, eyes fixed ahead. "She is breathing. Shallow but steady. I am approximately 4 miles out." On the passenger side, Shadow lies braced on the floorboard, his body curved against the seat as if he can hold the little girl in place by will alone. Emily rests against the folded blanket, face turned slightly toward the window, eyelashes damp, lips parted around small breaths that come and go like moth wings. Her fingers remain tangled in Shadow's wet fur. The dog does not move away. Every few seconds, he lifts his nose and smells the air near her hand, then her sleeve, then the cooler on the floor. He is checking, counting, keeping time in a language Ryan does not speak, but has learned to respect. "Sir," the dispatcher says, "medical staff are being notified. Do not open the container unless instructed." "Understood," Ryan answers. He glances at the cooler, secured between Shadow's front paws. The hospital label catches the dashboard light for one brief second, and the name Emily Carter glows there like a fragile truth. The rain thickens as they turn onto East Bay Street. Water streams along the curb. Traffic lights sway in the wind. A delivery truck idles near an intersection, its driver lifting one hand as Ryan passes with hazard lights flashing. No siren, no badge displayed. Just an old truck, a Marine behind the wheel, a child fighting quietly beside a dog who refuses to stop watching her. Ryan feels the weight of that. He has carried rifles, packs, wounded friends through training fields and desert heat, but nothing has ever felt heavier than the silence of a small child in the seat beside him. "Stay with me, Emily," he says, not loud enough to startle her. "You are doing fine." Shadow's ears lift at the sound of her name. Emily's eyelids tremble. For 1 second, her eyes open just enough to show a sliver of blue-gray beneath the lashes. She looks at Ryan without understanding him. Then she looks down at Shadow. Her fingers tighten. Barely, but enough. "Dog," she whispers. The word is so small the rain almost takes it. Ryan swallows hard. "Yes, ma'am," he says softly. "He is right here." Shadow lifts his head and gives one quiet breath against her wrist, warm and steady. Emily's eyes close again, but her hand stays in his fur. The dispatcher returns with another question, but a horn cuts across the line from somewhere behind them. Ryan glances in the rearview mirror. The same dark vehicle has emerged from the fog, several car lengths back, moving carefully but not turning away. Its headlights sit low and dim in the rain. Not rushing, not falling behind. Following. Ryan's mouth tightens. He does not speed up recklessly. He has Emily to think about. He shifts lanes at the next light, watching the mirror. The vehicle shifts too. Shadow notices before Ryan says a word. The dog rises slightly from the floor, careful not to disturb Emily, and stares through the rear window. A low vibration builds in his chest. Not a bark. Not yet. Just a warning carried under his breath. I see it, Ryan says. The dispatcher hears the change in his tone. Sergeant Walker, is there a problem? Ryan measures the road ahead. 2 miles to the hospital. Maybe less. Possible vehicle following us from the docks. Dark sport utility vehicle. No plate visible through rain. The line goes quiet for half a beat. Then the dispatcher's voice becomes sharper. Continue to Mercy Children's. Security and local officers will meet you at the emergency entrance. Ryan does not answer immediately because the light ahead turns yellow, and in that same instant Emily lets out a weak, trembling sound. Not pain, not fear. More like the body asking for help in the only way it can. Shadow turns instantly to her, pressing his nose to her wrist, then to the cooler, then back to Ryan. The dog's message is plain enough. Faster. Careful. Now. Ryan eases through the intersection just as the light turns red, hazard lights blinking, one hand briefly pressing the horn in warning. A sedan stops short, the driver staring wide-eyed as the truck passes. Ryan lifts a hand in apology, then focuses again. Mercy Children's rises ahead through the rain, its glass entrance glowing warm gold against the gray city morning. The sight feels almost unreal, like a lighthouse after miles of black water. He can already see movement under the emergency awning, 2 nurses in blue jackets, a security guard, someone rolling a stretcher toward the curb. There, Ryan says, voice breaking for the first time. We made it. Shadow does not relax. The dark vehicle is still behind them, slowing near the hospital drive, but not entering. Ryan pulls beneath the awning, brakes smooth, engine still running. Hospital staff rush forward, but Shadow rises over Emily, not aggressive, only protective, blocking them for one solemn second until Ryan opens the door and places a hand on the dog's shoulder. Easy, Shadow. They are here to help. The German shepherd looks at him, then at the nurses, then back at Emily. It is as if he is deciding whether the world has earned his trust. Emily's fingers slip from his fur as Ryan carefully lifts her into his arms. Shadow whines once, soft and broken, the first sound that feels almost like grief. Ryan carries her toward the stretcher, the cooler tucked firmly under his other arm, rain dripping from his sleeves onto the hospital floor. A woman in a white coat reaches for the labeled case, reads the name, and her face changes. Not fear. Recognition. Urgency. Get her inside, she says. Now. Ryan lays Emily down gently. Shadow jumps from the truck and lands beside the stretcher, wet paws leaving dark prints across the bright tile. No one stops him. As they wheel the little girl through the sliding doors, the dog trots beside her, close enough for Emily's hand to find fur again when it falls weakly over the blanket's edge. Ryan follows, soaked, breathless, and silent, while behind him the rain keeps falling over the hospital entrance and the dark vehicle waits at the edge of the street, unable to cross into the light. The sliding doors close behind Ryan with a soft mechanical sigh, and the sound feels too gentle for the weight of what has just crossed the threshold. Warm hospital air meets the cold rain clinging to his clothes, carrying the clean scent of antiseptic, coffee from a nurse's station, and the faint plastic smell of new medical gloves. Everything inside Mercy Children's moves with quiet speed. Shoes whisper across polished floors. Monitors beep behind half-open curtains. A nurse calls for pediatric emergency support, and another takes the cooler from Ryan with both hands, not like a container, but like a lantern brought through a storm. Shadow trots beside the stretcher until a young nurse steps forward with a cautious hand. We need room, boy, she says softly. The German shepherd stops, not because he is commanded, but because Emily's fingers slide from his fur as the stretcher turns toward a treatment bay. His ears lower. For the first time since the docks, he looks uncertain. Ryan sees it and kneels beside him, water dripping from his sleeves onto the shining floor. You got her here, he whispers. Let them do their part. Shadow stares through the glass wall as the medical team gathers around Emily. No panic. No shouting. Only practiced urgency, voices low and exact, hands moving carefully around a child who seems smaller beneath the bright hospital lights than she did in the truck. The doctor in the white coat, A woman in her early 40s with tired eyes and a calm that fills the room reads the label on the case again. Dr. Allison Pierce. Her name badge catches the light as she opens the sealed container with a nurse beside her. Ryan cannot hear every word through the glass, but he catches enough. Matched dose. Same patient. Still cold. Begin protocol. The phrases land like pieces of a prayer spoken in a language built for saving lives. Ryan stands slowly, his body feeling the delayed tremble of the morning, and backs away just enough to give the staff space. A security officer approaches, broad and cautious, rain still visible through the glass entrance behind him. Sergeant Walker? Ryan nods. Dispatch said there may have been a vehicle following you. Ryan turns toward the front doors. Through the rain-streaked windows, the dark sport utility vehicle sits across the street near the curb, engine running, headlights dim. It has not left. It has not come closer. It simply waits, and somehow that patience is worse than movement. That one, Ryan says. The security officer follows his gaze, then speaks quietly into his radio. Shadow hears the shift in Ryan's voice and rises, body angled toward the entrance. No, Ryan says, placing a steady hand on the dog's back. Not now. Shadow holds still, but his eyes do not leave the doors. A minute later, two local officers enter from the side corridor, rain darkening their shoulders. They speak with the security officer in low tones, then move toward the entrance without hurry, calm enough not to frighten families waiting near the lobby. Ryan watches them go, but his mind stays with Emily. He can still feel how light she was in his arms. He can still hear that one whispered word, dog, as if in her small, fading world, the only thing she fully trusted was the wet shepherd who had stood between her and the storm. Dr. Pierce steps out of the treatment bay after several long minutes, pulling off her gloves, her expression guarded but no longer grim. Ryan straightens. Shadow does too. She is stable for now, the doctor says. The words move through Ryan before he understands them. Stable. For now. A fragile mercy, but mercy all the same. The medication in that cooler was time-sensitive, she continues. Without it, we would have had very few options by the time she arrived. Ryan looks through the glass. Emily lies beneath a warm blanket now, an oxygen tube near her nose, her color still pale, but no longer ghost-like. A nurse adjusts something near the bed with the tenderness of someone tucking in her own child. What happened to her? Ryan asks. Dr. Pierce glances toward Shadow, then back at Ryan. Emily has a rare immune condition. She was scheduled for a transfer this morning from a private care unit near the harbor. Her mother called ahead before the line cut out. She said the ambulance had been redirected by mistake, then she lost contact with the driver. The doctor pauses, careful with the next part. We did not know where they were. Ryan looks down at Shadow. The German shepherd has stepped closer to the glass, nose nearly touching it, watching Emily's chest rise and fall. He knew, Ryan says. Dr. Pierce follows his gaze, and something softens in her face. It appears he did. Behind them, the front doors open again, bringing in a gust of rain and street noise. One of the officers returns, escorting a woman wrapped in a soaked beige coat, her hair loose from the weather, her face pale with fear and exhaustion. She is trembling so hard, she has one hand pressed over her mouth just to keep herself steady. Emily, she says, and the name breaks in half. Dr. Pierce turns immediately. Mrs. Carter? The woman nods, tears rising before she can stop them. Where is my daughter? Shadow pivots at the sound of her voice. His ears lift. His tail moves once, uncertain, then faster. The woman sees him and lets out a sound that is half sob, half breath. Shadow. The dog goes to her, pressing his head against her knees, and she drops one hand into his wet fur like she is touching the last living bridge back to her child. Ryan steps aside as Dr. Pierce opens the glass door. Mrs. Carter enters the room carefully, almost afraid the sight will vanish if she moves too fast. When she reaches Emily's bedside, she bends over her daughter and whispers her name again, softer this time, full of everything the storm could not drown. Emily's eyes flutter. Her hand shifts beneath the blanket. Shadow waits at the doorway until Ryan gives the smallest nod. Then the German shepherd walks in quietly and rests his chin beside Emily's hand. The little girl's fingers curl into his fur. Not strong. Not much. Enough. Ryan stands outside the room, rainwater drying cold on his jacket, watching a mother, a child, and a dog breathe in the same small circle of light. For the first time that morning, the storm outside feels far away. Mrs. Carter does not let go of Emily's hand for a long time. She sits beside the bed in the small emergency room, soaked coat slipping from her shoulders, lips moving in silent words that look less like speech and more like gratitude trying to find a place to land. Ryan remains outside the glass wall, close enough to see but far enough to give them privacy, his hands resting at his sides, his wet sleeves heavy and cold against his wrists. Shadow has settled on the floor beside Emily's bed, chin resting near the little girl's fingers, eyes half closed but not sleeping. He is listening. Ryan can tell. The dog listens to the nurse adjusting the monitor, to Dr. Pierce speaking softly with Mrs. Carter, to the distant roll of wheels in the corridor, to the rain still tapping the windows with patient fingers. Even in safety, Shadow keeps count of the world. A local officer returns from the lobby and steps beside Ryan, his voice low. The vehicle outside belongs to a private transport coordinator connected to the care unit. Driver says he followed because he saw you leave the dock with the child, but he never called it in. Ryan looks at him. Why not? The officer exhales through his nose, careful, measured. That is what we are trying to understand. Ryan turns back toward the room. Mrs. Carter is speaking now, one hand pressed to her daughter's blanket, the other gripping a tissue the nurse must have given her. Through the glass, Ryan catches pieces of it. The private ambulance. The storm. A route change. A call that cut out. Shadow refusing to leave the vehicle after the driver went to seek help near the warehouse offices. Emily's medicine locked inside because the rear door sealed automatically when the power system failed. A chain of ordinary mistakes, each one small enough to explain, all of them together almost too heavy to forgive. Ryan listens without judgment because he has learned that blame is loud and truth is often quiet. The officer clears his throat. The mother says the dog was trained to stay with Emily during transfers. Medical response K9. Comfort support, scent recognition, emergency alert work. He was supposed to keep her calm. Ryan watches Shadow lift his head as Emily stirs. The dog noses her hand gently. Emily's fingers move into his fur again, and the monitor beside her gives a steady rhythm that seems to fill the whole room with a fragile kind of music. He did more than keep her calm, Ryan says. The officer nods once. Seems that way. Dr. Pierce steps out a few minutes later, closing the glass door halfway behind her. Her expression carries exhaustion, but beneath it is something warm. Emily is responding, she says. The medicine arrived in time. We will transfer her upstairs once we are fully confident she remains stable. Ryan lets the words settle inside him. In time. Not early. Not easy. In time. Sometimes that is the only miracle anyone gets, and it is enough to change an entire life. Her mother wants to thank you, Dr. Pierce adds. Ryan glances into the room. Mrs. Carter is looking at him now, eyes red, face pale, but her gaze holds a strength that grief has not been able to steal. Ryan steps inside carefully, boots quiet on the floor. The room smells of warm blankets, rainwater, and the faint sweetness of pediatric hand soap. Emily is still resting, her small face turned toward Shadow, one cheek softened against the pillow. Mrs. Carter stands and tries to speak, but the first breath breaks before words can form. Ryan lifts one hand slightly. You do not have to say anything, ma'am. She shakes her head. Yes, I do. Her voice is thin from fear, but clear. I thought I lost her somewhere out there. I thought the storm had taken the signal, the driver, everything. Then they told me a Marine brought her in with Shadow, and I knew. She looks down at the dog. I knew he had found someone good. Ryan feels the sentence land harder than. Praise should. He is not sure he deserves it. He only did what the moment asked. Shadow did the rest. He would not leave her, Ryan says. Mrs. Carter bends and touches Shadow's head. He never has. Emily shifts beneath the blanket, eyelids fluttering again, and everyone in the room becomes still. The little girl opens her eyes a little wider this time. Not fully, just enough to see her mother, then Shadow, then Ryan standing near the foot of the bed. Her voice is barely a thread. Mommy. Mrs. Carter leans over her instantly, pressing a trembling kiss to her forehead. I am here, baby. I am right here. Emily's eyes drift to Shadow. He stayed. Mrs. Carter smiles through tears. Yes, sweetheart. He stayed. Emily looks toward Ryan, uncertain, studying the tall man with rain still drying on his jacket, the quiet face, the tired eyes. "Did you help him?" she whispers. Ryan swallows once. "I think he helped me." The smallest smile touches Emily's mouth, so faint it might have been mistaken for a breath. Shadow gives a soft sigh and lays his head back down beside her hand. No one speaks for several seconds. Outside the window, the rain begins to lighten, not stop, just soften, turning from a hard gray curtain into silver threads against the glass. Dr. Pierce watches the monitor, then gives Mrs. Carter a gentle nod. The rhythm is steady. Emily's breathing is steady. The room itself seems to exhale. Ryan steps back toward the doorway, but Emily's hand moves slightly, not toward her mother, not toward the doctor, but toward him. He hesitates, then comes closer and lets her small fingers touch the back of his hand. Her skin is warm now, warmer than before. "Thank you," she whispers. Ryan bends just enough to hear her, his voice low and rough around the edges. "You thank Shadow, little one." Emily's eyes close again, peaceful this time, and her fingers return to the dog's fur. Mrs. Carter looks at Ryan with tears running silently down her face, but there is no panic in them anymore. Only release. Only the aftershock of grace. In the doorway, the officer's radio murmurs softly. The hospital continues its careful work, and beyond the glass entrance the dark vehicle is finally gone. Ryan notices, then lets it go. Some answers can wait. Some lives cannot. Shadow remains beside Emily as if the floor beneath her bed is the only post he has ever been assigned, and Ryan understands then that not all guardians wear uniforms. Some wear soaked fur, carry no words, and still know exactly when to stand between the storm and a child who needs one more chance. By late morning, the rain has thinned to a silver mist over Charleston, softening the hospital windows and turning the city beyond them into a watercolor of wet brick, pale sky, and trembling streetlights. Ryan sits alone on a bench outside the pediatric wing, his elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped loosely, the damp cuffs of his jacket drying in uneven patches. He has been given a towel, a paper cup of black coffee, and a quiet corner where no one asks him to explain why his eyes keep returning to the hall where Emily was taken. The coffee has gone cold. He has not noticed. Across the corridor, Shadow lies outside Emily's room with his front paws crossed. No leash, no command, no need for either. Nurses pass him carefully, some with charts, some with soft smiles, and each time someone approaches the door, his ears lift, his amber eyes follow, then lower again when he understands they mean no harm. He has accepted the hospital now, but only within limits. The room belongs to Emily. Everyone else is a visitor. Ryan watches him and thinks about the note from the ambulance, now sealed in an evidence bag with the officers. "Trust the dog," for words that should have sounded desperate, but instead felt like the most reasonable instruction in the world. A woman in a navy blue coat steps off the elevator carrying a clipboard against her chest, her hair tied back neatly, her hospital badge swinging with each quick step. She stops when she sees Shadow, then Ryan. "Staff Sergeant Walker?" Ryan stands out of habit. "Yes, ma'am. I am Rebecca Hale, Patient Services Director. Dr. Pierce asked me to find you." Her voice is professional, but there is a softness under it that makes Ryan prepare himself. Hospitals have a way of delivering both mercy and pain in the same tone. Emily is doing better, she says before he can ask. She is awake more often now, still tired but aware. Ryan lets the breath leave him slowly. "That is good. It is very good." Rebecca looks toward Shadow. "Her mother told us what happened at the docks. The officers are still sorting out the transport failure, but the important part is that Emily received what she needed." Ryan nods, though his eyes stay on the dog. Shadow made sure of that. Rebecca follows his gaze. He was assigned to Emily through a hospital-supported comfort and alert program last year. Not every child responds to a medical support animal that strongly, but those two bonded right away. Her mother said Emily calls him her brave shadow because he follows her into scary places. Ryan's mouth moves into the faintest smile, gone almost as soon as it arrives. "Good name." Rebecca lowers her clipboard slightly. When the transfer was arranged this morning, Shadow was approved to ride with her. The driver reported a power issue near the harbor. He said he left to get help when his radio failed, but the automatic lock engaged. By the time he returned, The dog would not let him near the rear doors. Ryan looks at her. Why? Rebecca's expression tightens, not with accusation, but with the burden of not knowing enough. The driver claims he thought Shadow was panicked and dangerous. He went to find another responder. Mrs. Carter believes Shadow sensed Emily's condition was worsening and refused anyone he did not fully trust. Ryan remembers the dark vehicle waiting beyond the fence, the way it followed but would not enter the hospital drive. Someone followed us. The officers told me. Was it the driver? A supervisor from the transport company, Rebecca says. He is speaking with police now. There may have been poor decisions, fear of liability, confusion in the storm. I cannot say more than that. Ryan hears what she does not say. Sometimes people fail because they are cruel. Sometimes because they are frightened. Sometimes because they are more worried about blame than a child's breathing. He looks back at Shadow. The dog has lifted his head. Inside the room, Emily's voice is faint, barely carrying. Through the closed door. Shadow. The German shepherd rises immediately, tail low but moving, and noses the door. A nurse opens it with a smile. All right, guardian. She is asking for you. Shadow enters slowly, paws quiet on the floor, and Ryan sees Emily propped against pillows, smaller than before, but brighter somehow, her face warmed by a little color. Mrs. Carter sits beside her, one arm around the blanket at her daughter's side. Emily reaches for Shadow, and the dog places his head on the edge of the bed with a gentleness that seems too careful for such a strong animal. Emily laughs once. Not loud, not full, but real. The sound crosses the hallway and finds Ryan where he stands. It catches him off guard. He looks down for a moment, blinking at the polished floor, because laughter from a child who almost slipped away has a holiness to it that no medal, no anthem, no folded flag can touch. Rebecca steps closer, speaking softly. She asked to see you too. Ryan looks up. Me? She remembers your voice. Ryan hesitates at the doorway, suddenly less sure than he had been in the storm. It is easier to break a lock than to enter a room where gratitude is waiting. Mrs. Carter sees him and waves him in. Sergeant. Emily turns her head, eyes clearer now, still tired but curious. Shadow stays pressed against her side, as if presenting Ryan for inspection. Ryan steps inside and removes his cap, holding it respectfully in both hands. How are you feeling, Miss Emily? She studies him with the seriousness only children can carry, the kind that makes adults tell the truth. Sleepy. That makes sense. Mommy said you drove fast. Mrs. Carter closes her eyes briefly, half embarrassed, half relieved. Ryan shakes his head. I drove careful. Emily glances at Shadow. He told you where to go? Ryan looks at the dog, then back at her. He told me what mattered. Emily seems to accept that completely. She reaches beneath her blanket and pulls out the pink bracelet with her name on it, the beads now clean and dry. I made him one too, she whispers. Mrs. Carter reaches into a small hospital bag and takes out a second bracelet, larger, made of blue and white beads, with one word spelled unevenly across it. Hero. Emily holds it toward Shadow, then pauses, looking at Ryan. Can he wear it? Ryan's throat tightens. I think he earned it. Mrs. Carter gently slips the bracelet onto Shadow's collar, careful not to disturb the tag. The little beads settle against the worn metal, bright and childlike beside the scratches of service. Shadow looks up at Emily as if the bracelet weighs more than decoration, as if he understands that a child has given him the only medal she had. Ryan stands silent at the foot of the bed while the room fills with a peace that does not erase the morning, but redeems it. Outside, the rain finally stops. Sunlight breaks through the clouds and lays a pale gold